Hey guys, Centurion here at ESO Vault. I'm back at it again with another build. Today I'll be looking at the Fate Carver. Fate Carver is a stamina arcanist using dual wield daggers and a two-handed sword. Last time I did a one-bar pet sword, which is easier to play than the two-bar builds I usually give you. Although the Fate Carver is a two-bar build, I would argue that it's not any harder to play than the pet sword. If anything, it might be easier. Gear is a bit tricky on this one though, but I'll give you some options there, as always. Stamina Arcanist is flat out the strongest thing you can play right now, and when I do a fight with one of the usual Overland bosses, you're going to see that. Now this isn't a meta build, it uses a two-handed back bar and dual wield on the front like meta builds, but it's different in other respects. Now even though this is off-meta stuff here, I guarantee you that if you run this, enemies will absolutely melt. A word of caution here though, I feel it in my bones that a nerf to the Arcanist will arrive sooner or later, probably sooner. But any nerf is just going to bring it back in line with the other classes, so I don't think you can really go wrong here. Okay, let's move on to the character sheet. The character is a Dark Elf, which is a good stamina damage dealer race, but you can go with any number of races here. I usually put a little caveat in and say don't use a Breton, but if that's really what you want, play a Breton. Don't let me talk you out of it. It'll do a little less damage, but damage with this setup is disgusting, so I don't think it really matters. I'm using lavafoot soup and salt rice. If you don't have this recipe, get out there and participate in the New Life Festival because that's where it comes from and there's still time left. Now you guys know that you can swap this out if you need more help. Dubious Camoran Throne is a great choice because you don't need the sustain on this at all. A more expensive option is Artaeum Takeaway Broth, but I don't know that I'd bother on this one. I should have called this the Why Bother Arcanist build because that's going to be a recurring theme. Why bother? I'm using the Thief Mundus, and that's the standard for damage dealers. Up top, the character sheet looks a lot like any other if you got the champion points. Keep in mind these are unbuffed stats. These get buffed by potions of weapon power and any group buffs if you're running with a group. In a good group, your weapon damage will go sky high. I didn't mention I've got 64 points in stamina. You'll always put all your points into your primary stat unless you're doing a PvP build. I've got 1400 points of stamina recovery, which the build totally doesn't need. I'm just not having to hit as many buttons on this setup, and that's why I said in the beginning, this is easy to play. Okay, let's see what's on those buttons by looking at skills. I'm going to start on the two-handed bar and go in the order of the rotation. First up is Inspired Scholarship from the Herald of the Tome skill line. This gives me major brutality and sorcery and causes my class skills to deal extra damage. The best thing it does though is generate a crux if I don't already have one. And I need 3 crux to maximize the damage of my main attack. What's a crux? It's the floating green things, and that's all I know. Next is Stampede from the two-handed skill line, which is a great gap closer that leaves a powerful AoE on the ground, damaging enemies in the area. Stampede is one of the 4 skills in the game that will work to increase my weapon damage if the sword has the infused trait and a weapon damage enchantment. After Stampede, I use Carve, which does damage up front and causes enemies to bleed over time. If you want to simplify the build, you can leave this off and just substitute a Fighter's Guild skill for passive damage. That's what I was doing until the last minute when I added Carve to the lineup. Carve didn't actually seem to increase damage on the top end, but it made the build consistently do damage closer to the maximum, if that makes any sense. But again, Carve isn't really necessary to do great damage, so some of you may say, why bother? That's my theme, remember? Next I have the usual heal, which is Resolving Vigor. If you don't want to do PvP, you can try Rune Mend or Remedy Cascade from your class skills, which might even be better. I'd hate to say it, but I didn't try them. I'll leave that up to you guys. Let me know in the comments if you're running a heal from your class skills and how well it works. Oddly, I also have Camouflage Hunter on my back bar for a passive buff to weapon damage. I had a spare slot, which cracks me up. That's how good the class skills on the Arcanist are. You don't actually need all your slots. Last on this bar is my ultimate, the Tide King's Gaze. This calls in a mini version of Hermaeus Mora that floats over your enemies while it blasts the hell out of them. On the dual wield bar, I'm going to start by putting down Barb Trap from the Fighter's Guild skill line. Even if you have a source of minor force other than this, I would say don't leave this off your bar. One of the things Barb Trap does is it causes the hemorrhaging status effect, which does a lot of damage. Status effects have assumed an important role in the game, and this build and the class itself really lean into that. The Arcanist has a 15% buff to status effect damage in its passives. After Trap, I use Deadly Cloak from the Dual Wield skill line. Great damage over time with an added benefit of reducing my damage taken from area attacks by 20%. Okay, now I'm getting to the skills that dish out the real damage. I use Cephaliarch's Flail twice. I hope I'm saying that right, but I have no idea. Tentacles lash out doing damage, healing me, generating crux, and coating the target with Abyssal Ink. All that from one skill. Abyssal Ink causes targets to take 5% more damage. Because I use it twice, I now have 3 crux floating around me. Yeah, that's right, 3. Don't forget I already have one from the Inspired Scholarship skill. Since I have 3 crux, I can now use the Exhausting Fate Carver skill, which will do its maximum damage after consuming the crux. I use the flail 2 more times, then I use my new Jesus Beam again, and that finishes the rotation. Rounding out the bar, I have Camo Hunter and Flawless Dawnbreaker for passive damage. And that's it for skills. Let's go put the beat down on No May Grind. I love an easy world boss. I think Sharpest Knight said that. Maybe not. I forget. I buff with Inspired Scholarship, then use Stampede, Carve, and my ultimate. Bar Swap, Trap, Deadly Cloak, use the flail twice, then it's the 4-second channel of Fate Carver. Two more flails, then Fate Carver again. While I'm channeling Fate Carver the first time, I actually queue up Flail by hitting that button during the channel, then it automatically fires as soon as the Fate Carver channel is done. I'm running Camouflage Hunter on both bars, so I make sure to get behind this guy as much as possible for that extra damage from Minor Berserk. Alright, go ahead and die, you Daedric asshole. 52,000 points of damage per second. And I have to point out that I didn't run Caltrops or anything that would apply Major Breach. I usually run Major Breach on builds in case I'm going solo or I wind up face tanking some ads or something. So it's 52,000 points by myself, no group buffs, no Major Breach. I think you can take that pretty much anywhere. And I don't plan to add Major Breach into the build. Technically, it's not a damage dealer's job to supply Major Breach, and the build clearly doesn't need it. So you know what I say, why bother? Before we move on, I want to point out that the build has 4 different status effects that did significant damage. I'll touch on that in the gear section. Okay, let's have a look at that gear.
I don't really care about appearances. You always look fine to me. If you like to pamper yourself, just do it on your own time, all right?
I'm not pampering myself, I just want to show them the gear. Alright, here's the gear. Both of my daggers are from the Order's Wrath set, which is a 5-piece set from the High Isle. You can craft this or have somebody craft it for you. This is the strongest craftable set in the game. At this point, I want to say a few words about dual wield dagger traits so that you know what the meta is and how it works. And I know that I don't always run the meta, but here it will definitely pay off. The dagger on my main hand is in the Nirnhone trait, which is the current meta. Now, Nirnhone goes on the main hand because you'll get almost a full 2-piece bonus when it's on the main hand, and practically nothing when it's on the offhand. Try it yourself if you have a Nirnhone dagger. Swap the weapon from one hand to the other and watch what happens to your weapon damage on your character sheet. This doesn't split evenly like the precise trait. Nirnhone also increases the tooltip for the weapon it's on, so it increases light and heavy attack damage. But what you're really after is that increase to your overall damage that affects all skills. On my offhand, I have a dagger in the Charge trait. Charge increases your chance of applying status effects. All status effects, not just the enchantment on your offhand. Now, Charge splits its bonus evenly from one hand to the other, just like Precise, so running it on my offhand works fine. The rule of thumb here is that if you have more than 2 status effects doing significant damage, Charge is the way to go on your offhand. This build actually has 4, otherwise you would just run Precise on your offhand. For the record, Charge will only apply to one enemy, so whenever you have multiple enemies, it will invariably be on the wrong enemy, not the boss. In these fights, Precise will do better, but there's enough damage here, so I would just run Charge on the offhand if you can. On the two-handed bar, I have a Maelstrom Greatsword. This has the Infused trait and a weapon damage enchantment, so enemies caught in the area in my Stampede skill will actually buff my weapon damage the whole time at least one enemy is in that area. I know I already mentioned that in the skills section, but it's worth saying it again. The Maelstrom Greatsword also increases the damage of direct damage attacks. This actually buffs the damage of the Fate Carver skill by increasing the damage it does on every tick during its channel. That's 3 times a second for 4 seconds, so this really cranks up the damage on Fate Carver. Remember, if you want a Maelstrom Greatsword, you don't have to do the arena on Veteran. You can do it on normal. I actually did it on Veteran, but so long ago that this sword is normal. That kind of sucks. Oh well. I'm wearing 1 piece of Slimecraw for its 1 piece bonus to critical chance. The second 5-piece set I'm wearing is Deadly Strike, and I told you you'd get sick of seeing this set, but its buff to damage over time and channel attacks is second to none. This is best in slot gear on the Arcanist. Go to Cyrodiil to get it or buy it from guild traders, but get your hands on it because it's worth it. Another item I'm running on pretty much everything is the Velati Mage's Amulet. This provides a massive 15% damage increase to monsters while basically switching off your light attack damage. But in a build where you spend half your time doing a channeled attack, who cares? This mythic item works great on an Arcanist. Now don't think you have to have this, even though it seems like it was made for this class. I ran that same fight with No Meg Rhine without it or a monster helm and hit 45,000 points of DPS. So if you don't want to grind the mythic skill line, then don't. Why bother? Armor weights here are all medium. Traits should be divines. I've got a few oddball pieces on. The jewelry is all bloodthirsty. You could get away with infused on purple stuff, but the damage gap will open up if you gold the jewelry out, with bloodthirsty the clear winner. Obviously, you can get by with other gear on this. Just about any halfway decent gear will work. Hunding's Rage, Spriggans, you could even front bar Briarheart here. I would try to stick with sets that actually buff the damage of your skills though. Don't run proc sets on this. You want sets that'll increase the damage of that Fate Carver channel. Alright, that's it for gear. Run what you've got. Work on your skills in rotation. Don't work too hard though. Just get out there and have fun. Okay, I'll wrap this up with a quick look at champion points. The blue slottables are Fighting Finesse, Master at Arms, Biting Aura, and Wrathful Strikes. And yeah, champion points can be super counterintuitive, but trust me here, I tried the rest.
I hate fabricants, automatons, clockwork creatures, whatever you want to call them. Hate the brass, hate the clicking, love to see them in pieces.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about them either. Oh, hey there. I want to thank you guys for watching the channel. If you want to see more content like this, please like the video and subscribe. And as long as I've got you, you don't know the way out of here, do you? I'm sorry. Never mind. You've got stuff to do. We'll find our way out. You guys go and have a great day and enjoy your adventures in Tamriel.